Howdy, I'm Toby. I'm a high schooler from Northern Virginia, and I've worked in a variety of professional and volunteer rescue positions, both for Boy Scouts and for a variety of employers up here in Northern Virginia. And this last summer, when my normal summer jobs all got canceled, I decided to go lifeguard instead because it seemed like it could be fun, and it was. But I also noticed that for the most part, a lot of the lifeguards didn't even know CPR, and we were trained every year in it for a couple days, and we just went in and would sit down and learn CPR for a few days. And almost every week we had a safety inspection to test us on our knowledge of CPR, and yet even we didn't. Well, I knew CPR, but a lot of lifeguards I worked with still didn't know CPR. So that made me think, do normal people know CPR? Well, yes, a lot of them do. But a lot of people don't necessarily remember it that well, and this is all even like the people who get training don't necessarily know it that well, but those people who get training aren't always going to be there, and when they are, they might not, in the panic of the moment, remember how to do CPR or other kinds of first aid because we fall to the level of our training. We don't rise to the level of our expectations. So I decided that, first aid apps on your phone that tell you how to do first aid are pretty useful. And then I installed some, and all of the ones that are out there are pretty terrible. Some of them, I would argue, are outright dangerous and maybe even deadly with some of their suggestions. So when I saw health as one of the prompts for this hackathon, I knew right away what I was going to do. So I made an app that lets you, or that walks you through administering first aid. It asks you questions to determine what the patient's condition is, and it tells you what you need to do. It also does the same for mental health crises. And third thing it does is encourages you to get training, because like I said, you rise to the level of your training, you don't, or you fall to the level of your training, you don't rise to the level of your expectations. So even if they have this reference, we still want people to get trained and to keep their training up to date and know what they're doing. But we can have this app as a stopgap for when people forget their training, or for people who don't have training and can't get it yet. So this was built in React Native, and I put together this whole custom mechanism to read in files with all the treatment information and spit back out custom dynamically generated screens. None of the screens are hard-coded, and everything's dynamically generated. It'll send you through a whole tree to determine what's wrong with the patient and what you need to do. So some challenges we ran into. This was the first time I've ever written code in React Native, or at least the first app I've ever made, and one of the first times I've done a project in JavaScript. I really came into this having no idea code-wise what I was doing, and quite frankly, I actually think I did pretty well. I think I learned it very well in the 24 hours. I think I could go do another project and be quite confident with this. Some other problems, I broke the Android compiler at one point, like the compiler itself, not my code, so I couldn't test because all I have is an Android phone. A few hours later I did fix that and was able to resume, but that was a problem for a little while. I can't do art at all, and there's no pictures of all of these things that I'm teaching online, so I didn't really have any graphics for the app. That would have been really helpful, and unfortunately I couldn't go out and get another person to do photography with to make them, like, create fake injuries on them so I could get pictures. So instead, I just left spots in the app for images, and at some point in the future, I'm going to get some of my friends together and create images to use for this. I've got some EMS friends who are big into art and photography, and they've already said they'll help me with that. The other thing, the online emulator didn't work nicely with the metronome I was using for CPR, so I did remove that in the demo that you guys will be able to access. Sorry about that. It would crash the online emulator, but not on my phone, so I just removed it temporarily. I'm going to bring that back later. Also, my entire team, they were all people from the Hoohacks Discord that I met beforehand. They all kind of just dropped out before the hackathon actually started. That was unfortunate. Like I said before, this was my first hackathon. Also my first time running an app in React Native, and I think it came out pretty well, so I'm pretty proud of that accomplishment. And of course, I learned JavaScript, I learned React Native for this, and I think I learned them pretty well, especially since I've only ever done Java and PHP and Python before. And I now feel like I could do some of the stuff I've done in those in React. I've also learned a lot about mobile development and design. I've only ever written desktop apps, like I said, and some web apps designed for desktop. I've never done anything with web app development. This was actually really fun because I got to do that, and I've never known how to before. And then what's next? Like I said before, I want to get some pictures. I'm already working with some people to do that in the near future so that there can be graphics on how to do things. And once I have those pictures, I'm going to publicly release this on the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store instead of just on GitHub, because I want to be able to reach as many people as possible, because that's the only way to fulfill the goal of this app. I'm also going to, of course, be maintaining the app, keeping it up to date, and making sure all the protocols are the most recent, and adding a few more prompts in the triage before the app reaches the point where it just gives you the remaining conditions that could be left. That way it can narrow it down more, and there's less having to know what to do for the person actually using the app. Also adding a few, or not adding a few, but splitting some of the more generalized conditions into more specific ones so I can give more specific information on treating them. So yeah, that's about where we're at with this, and I'm really excited for the future of this app, and I'm really excited for what I got done in this 24 hours. Great first time hackathon experience. I'm a little disappointed it wasn't in person, but hey, next year, So see you next year then.